The prosecution continues its case against the Hargis Faction from Breathitt County. 3 men would testify in court this week: W.W. Vaughn, Daniel Bush, and Moses Feltner. While these testimonies were considered to be very damaging to the defense case, very little of what was actually said was passed down through history. Come along with us as we walk through what remains of the statements that the 3 men gave concerning the death of James Cockrill. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger time machine to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. The testimony of W.W. Vaughn. The first witness of the 3 to take the stand was attorney W.W. Vaughn. He was the acting attorney of Thomas Cockrill during his bail hearing for the shooting death of Ben Hargis. There was not a lot of information that survived concerning the testimony of W.W. Vaughn. But let us walk through what remained and see if we can piece together what he said through the testimonies of others that he verified. According to the article written in the Breathitt County News, Jackson, Kentucky, April 21, 1905, quote, on Wednesday morning, W.W. Vaughn went on the stand and, among other things, corroborated Ance White as well as Charles Terry about the maneuvers in the courtroom during the hearing of the application for Tom Cockrill for bail. Charles Green and James Blanton testified to the same facts in the former trials, unquote. Okay, so let's recap here. We do know that Ance White did testify that there was a plot to kill 5 men: Dr. Cox, Jim Cockrill, Mark Cockrill, Attorney Vaughn, and another, at the court bail hearing of Thomas Cockrill. Tom Cockrill was in jail for a barroom shootout he had with Ben Hargis, who was shot and killed. Ance White agreed to his part to help his brother, Tom White, to get out of prison for first-degree murder of James Markham. This plot failed because of the actions that were taken by a deputy to calm the situation down. While Vaughn did not know the details of the plot to kill him, he was able to testify that there was a huge uproar at the court hearing and the actions of the people that were taking during that time. We can safely assume that he gave statements concerning this viewpoint of the happenings that was happening at the hearing, even though the court records have been lost to time. The testimony of Daniel Bush. The next witness on the stand was Daniel Bush. He is also another new witness in the case that we do not have previous testimonies to glean from. However, we do find it interesting that he was offered his job back as town marshal as a form of a bribe in this case. Returning to the article written in the Breathitt County News, Jackson, Kentucky, April 21, 1905, quote, the next witness, Daniel Bush, was formerly a deputy town marshal of Jackson, said that about 10 days before the killing of Cockrill, he met Jim Hargis on a bridge at Jackson, and that Hargis asked him to assist in the plot to get rid of Cockrill. Witness says that he refused to have anything to do with the plot to kill Cockrill. Witness says Hargis held out the position of town marshal of Jackson if he would do the work, unquote. We do find it interesting that Hargis went to a former lawman to ask him to be an assassin. Was it because Bush had nothing to do with the breaking of the law that he refused? Or how about he refused on the grounds to be a hired assassin for the Hargises, which meant that the Hargis faction would essentially control him for the rest of his life? Either way this was, and there are several more possibilities here, Bush said no, and was willing to testify to all that was said on that bridge in Jackson. The testimony of Daniel Bush concluded all of the information that was available in the April 21st edition of the Breathitt County News. The testimony of Moses Feltner. The end of the article we have just stated did not end the coverage of the trial. The coverage of the trial would continue the next week. Moving on to the next week's edition of the Breathitt County News, Jackson, Kentucky, April 28, 1905. Quote, Moses Feltner was put on the stand Wednesday afternoon and occupied all the afternoon and the entire day Thursday, giving his testimony, which was pretty much the same as given in his famous deposition given at Winchester a few months ago, unquote. This one would be pretty easy to go back to. We will only briefly recap what Feltner has already stated in other courts of law. First, Feltner would most likely recount his testimony concerning the plots to kill Markham and Cockrill, how the men would meet in the Hargis store office at night to discuss who should die first and how. He also spoke of the placement of weapons and who all was involved in the plots. Moses Feltner was also one of the men that was bribed to leave the area during the Markham damage case. It is believed that his damaging testimony would land everyone in jail. He first gave his statements through the affidavits given to the court before he started appearing in person. His testimony was a pivot point for several of the accused to be found guilty of the contempt of court and having incurred jail time and/or fines. Other newspaper stories. What other reports were saying about these testimonies together? And if Moses Feltner was a two-day testimony, why did they put his testimony with the other two men? We see in several of the other newspapers the following statement almost word for word. According to the article found in the Interior Journal, Stamford, Kentucky, April 21, 1905. Quote, in the Hargis trial at Lexington, Moses Feltner again detailed the alleged plots to take the life of Cockrill, while Dan Bush, a new witness, said that Hargis asked him to assist in the murder of Cockrill. Bush is serving a term in the penitentiary for horse stealing. W.W. Vaughn, a former attorney of Jackson but now of Oklahoma, also gave damaging testimony against Hargis, unquote. Even though we do not have the complete testimony of the men and the court records cannot be found currently, we can surmise that the defense team is not too happy with the proceedings thus far. Even the newspaper reports are not looking for a favorable outcome to the cases. But there is more testimony to come and more twists and turns as the trial continues. Next week we will have more testimony from Noah J. Peters. His testimony will be concerning his viewpoint of the shooting of Cockrill from the position of 10 to 12 feet from the front door of the courthouse. Thank you. We at Kentucky, Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian feuds. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification button. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky, Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.